Thank you so much for coming. It's really humbling to see so many people turn out. I assume you're fans of the film rather than fans of me, but it's still lovely to see everyone. I'm a modeler. I've been working in the industry about 10 years. My background basically is, I like to think of myself as a modeler who'll cover all areas of modeling, so I don't think of myself as character or hard surface. I don't find it's advantageous to box myself in any way, so I just consider myself a modeler. These are some of the places that I've worked at or with over the years, primarily film work, but some advertising, feature animation, some commercials, and a little bit of teaching as well. For those of you who are new to the industry, I started as a runner at Double Neg, and that was 10 years ago, and I'm now on Escape Studios advisory board, so it shows you what can happen. Right, so Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, for those of you who work in motion graphics, and I guess that's probably a fair percentage of you, don't get blown away by what is about to happen on screen. Why? That's the extent of my motion graphic skills. So why Guardians of the Galaxy the Rejects? Well, there's going to be a lot of stuff that's released with the DVD, and Framestore are doing a lot of talks at the moment about Rocket and Groot and all the big builds. And I find it's interesting to actually try and give you a realistic idea, certainly from the creature development and the modeling point of view, of the sort of stuff you will get to work on that maybe doesn't get showcased quite so much. So I'm going to focus on the characters that, I don't know, don't get showcased. Some of the stuff that is either cut from the film, reduced heavily, only in the background. So I'm hoping this will be an interesting insight because I find it's often glossed over. This character's been completely built. We had 6-week build on him, displacement maps. He's got facial setup. He's got sim rigs on his clothing. But in the end, he wasn't used in the streets. The streets refer to the streets of nowhere, the Skull City. He was actually reappropriated to be used in the prison. So I don't know if anyone actually spotted him, but as the Guardians are first brought to the kiln, he is... Oh, is this working? He's in the backgrounds? Just there. So sadly blurred out for a lot of the film. There is a really nice establishing shot of them as they actually walk into the prison. There's a big sweeping camera movement, and he's chilling on the side. But it's interesting to note how much work went into this guy and how little you would know it in a way. So there's a huge amount of effort made to, firstly, just meld him into the background very nicely, but to vary the types of prisoners. So as I mentioned, he's one of the inmates in the kiln. These are some of the other inmates. This is another concept by Anthony and Francisco. So there's meant to be quite a variation on this. Now, we've got the big 8-foot, I think he's roughly 8-foot, monstrous dude. We've got this fat guy jumping around. But Marvel elected to do an awful lot of this film with prosthetics. And you can see some of the inmates in the film here. I made a slight faux pas because I actually said to a colleague, "Oh, who designed the blue guy? He looks so good." And then he told me, "No, that's actually an actor." But he's really tall. So they did a really good job of making these guys quite distinctive, and they had quite a large cast of extras. You can see some of the prosthetic work there. We don't do this stuff, but I'm a big fan of having a balance of computer-aided visual effects and actual special effects. The Star Wars prequels are a prime example of film that suffer from CG for CG's sake. There's a whole host of characters in that film that would be beautiful puppets or prosthetics, and they don't bother. So I'm glad that the makers of Guardians didn't just fill that prison set with loads of computer-animated inmates. It wouldn't have had quite the reality that it does. So that's the models we deliver. For look development or render, we may be asked to deliver them the posed model. We may not. It does vary. And we'll be asked to give them the displacement maps that we've generated from our sculpt. They do generally do tests on the A-posed model, but it's sometimes we're asked to do the post one too. And for texture, we'll deliver the UV model. As I said, our standard character already has UVs, but we'll end up giving them the texture concept as well, so they have that as reference. And for CFX, we will give them all our simulation meshes. So it's quite a tall order of things that get delivered. Now, just to put this in perspective for you, the Street Alien A and Street Alien D had all of this done. Every aspect of it. We're probably talking about 10 weeks worth of work, including face shapes as well. And you've seen how they're utilized in the film. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm actually an advocate of it because it's nice to have all that detail going to something that's so subtle in the background. And that is me done. So thank you for watching.